Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Kanti and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on Prism for Social Work Evaluations. Today's presenter is Shubda Fuge, who is our senior product owner here at Exxat. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please add them in the questions box. We will be pausing periodically to ensure all your questions are answered. As usual, feel free to download today's presentation to follow along, or you can keep it as a reference and you can find the presentation under the handout section. This webinar will be recorded and shared with you through an email 1 hour after the webinar, and we will also make it available for you on our YouTube channel. So we are going to give few more minutes for everyone to get logged in and to get their audio sorted. So we'll be back with you in just in few moments. Without further ado, we are going to go ahead and get started. Shubda, you are ready?
Yes, thank you,
Okay.
Kant.
Okay.
Hello everyone. So we are going to talk today about how evaluations within Exxat Prism can help social work schools to complete some of the evaluation workflows in the system. Uh, so the agenda for today is we will first go through you know something that we call as learning activities, which include all of the activities that students have to complete, and let's just get an overview of Exxat's offering. Then we'll discuss the learning contract workflow that is currently available within Exxat Prism. We will also have a demo of this workflow and see how the system interacts. And then lastly, we'll look at the reports that are currently available. And then we'll have some time for Q&A. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so Exxat Prism provides a platform for schools which enables them to uh, build and manage forms, evaluations, as well as assignments as per their own needs. Uh, you can customize the questions that you would like to see on the evaluation forms. You could also customize the workflow that you would like these forms to be integrated with. Uh, all of this is customizable, totally customizable, but some of the common use cases or common types of forms that schools set up on the platform are, for example, student evaluation of clinical placement, students performance evaluations, faculty evaluation of student, daily evaluations, uh, or some of the forms where you'd like to integrate scoring, and lastly learning contracts. So we'll go through learning contracts today and the variations of learning contract that are supported within Exxat. Okay, so like I was saying earlier, we will go through a learning contract workflow today. A typical setup within Exxat that can be done is you could set up your learning contract as a three-step process, wherein you might want your students to first fill in all of the objectives, get those reviewed by FI and TAs, and then basically do the midterm and final evaluation of how the student is performing against the defined competencies. So the workflow works just like I just described, wherein at the beginning of the placement, the student would be filling up their objectives and getting it reviewed with FI and TS. The school reviews the same objectives after FI and TS review. Uh, and then they can then as the midterm starts, the student can fill their own self rating against competencies. Those self ratings can then be reviewed by FITS, and they can add their own ratings for the student, and then it goes back to the school for review. Student also gets to review it, and finally, at the end of the placement, a final review can be done, which would follow the same process as a midterm uh, assessment. Uh, Now, this is the standard variation, although schools can make changes as per their liking. So if a school, for example, if you just want students to submit their objectives and just want FINTs to review it and not have the review done for the student against competencies, that can be set up. If you want these forms to be set up separately, that can also be done. The current workflow that I just described, it is all integrated within one form. So it is an end-to-end workflow, right from the initial flow till the final ratings and final review. But yeah, this can be set up as per the school's liking and whatever you feel would be more suitable for your program. We will now look at the screens and how you can
Shweta,
set.
quick question
Yeah.
before you move on. So, can you also let us know how can the school get it set up? Who should they reach out to set up these workflows?
Yeah, sorry, I missed that. So you, when you're getting onboarded or at any point of time, you could contact your account managers who would get you in touch with our configuration teams. They would understand from you the kind of workflow and the kind of questions you want on your forms, and they will set it up for you in the system. The screens that I'm going to show you now, though those are the from there you would have to activate, so you still get you still get to save which course will have which forms. So that setup happens later on, but to have the forms available in the system, you would need to get in touch with your account managers. Okay, let's move on. I'm now going to log in as a school administrator in the system. So this is a login. Either if you're a school admin, you would see this kind of a landing screen. Uh, to manage anything related to evaluations or patient evaluations or timesheets and other learning activities, you would go from learning activities here. So here you can see a list of all of the course offerings that are present in the system today. Uh, there is also a way for you to uh, add something called as learning activity group. A learning activity group gives you more flexibility around which courses you would want to manage together. So a lot of times schools, for example, would like to manage all the course offerings that belong to a particular class together, right? So you could group them up together. So for example, here we have created these two learning activity groups. So here you can see everything that is related to one class is what we have grouped together over here. But you could do the grouping as per your liking and as per whatever is more convenient for your program. To add a new group, you could go to add group, and you could, for example, let's add a class of 2025. Here you could select the or search for the courses that you would want to group together, and select them. And basically once you click on save, it will generate the new group for you. I'm not going to add it today as this is our demo setup and I don't want to disturb the data, but this is what you could do if you want to group some of the courses together. We do recommend this adding a learning activity group, as it helps you to make the information more streamlined. As you can see, when you look at all the courses together, it doesn't, it is not focused on anything particular. So so apart from this element, when you want to make setup of any course, any learning activity, what you have to do is you have to go inside the setup option over here. As you can see right now, for this course, we only have forms evaluations activated. For SSW 314, we have forms as well as timesheet activated. all of your evaluations, learning activity, learning contracts, everything will be under forms/evaluations. Uh, so let's go inside one of the courses and try setting up a learning activity. So let's set up for this course. So as of now, no forms have been activated. When you click on the plus icon over here, it is going to show you all of the forms that have been set up by our team for your program. So like I had said earlier, once you get in touch with our team, they set some of these forms from the backend for you, and then you can choose which ones you want to activate for a particular course. So right now, for example, if I want to activate learning portfolio, you could Exxat supports both placement based forms as well as forms where you do not require a placement. It could be a didactic form, or it could be a form that you just want students to fill out once during their clinical courses or during their uh, you know uh, then the next one is related to how you want to set up scoring and grading for this form. So if you want the if you want a form's score to be added up for calculation of course grade, then you would select yes from here. If you select yes, you would also enter the weightage that you would want to assign to this particular form or this particular learning activity. Then you would publish date is something that will control when the form is visible to the student when they log into the system. So you may the dates can be set up around placement dates, since this is a placement form. So you could say I want this to be activated, let's say 1 day before placement start date. You would also set up due date. So the form that we are going to set up, as discussed earlier, will be filled in midterm as well as final. So it is going to ask you for two due dates, the midterm due date and final due date. So if I say 1 day after placement mid date, or let's give them some more time to fill up. So 10 days after placement mid date, or you could say final is due 2 days after placement end date, as an example. You could also control the visibility of form for different faculty roles. So as you might be aware, Exxat does offer faculty logins, and broadly there are three types of faculty roles supported in the system today. One is course faculty, placement faculty, and a faculty advisor. So you could select which of these faculty roles should be able to make changes to the form. So let's say if we say placement and course faculty should be able to make changes, and faculty advisor not should only be able to view the form. So once you select somebody from this drop down to make changes, that means they can either change the status of the form, or they could make changes to the student responses as well. Versus somebody who is only able to view the form, they will only see the status of the form and the responses. So once all of this has been set up, you just need to make this
Sorry
bit
to interrupt,
on.
but one question here. So, what if we
Mhm.
don't select any of the faculty, like how you selected, because this is optional, right? So, what would happen if we
Yeah.
don't select the options here?
So they will not be able to see that form from their login.
Oh,
Only the school admin who has the super admin access, they will be able to access the form and review the form.
got it. Okay. So, if the schools want to have their faculty to review the form and make changes, then they have to ensure they are selecting the appropriate faculty from here.
Right.
Okay. Thanks, Shubda.
Okay. Uh, okay. So once everything has been set up as per your preferences, you would just click on save. And this will activate the form, and you can see over here. I'm not sure if we have placements in this course, but yeah, let's look at some other course. So here, for example, for this course, we have activated all of these different types of forms. Uh, this is the screen from which the school can look at the status, how different students are doing against each of the forms. Um, but right now, for our form, the one that we are going to review today is learning portfolio, which is also a type of a learning contract. So let's look at it from the student login first, how the students are going to view these forms. So now I'm logged in as a student. This is the student's dashboard. Uh, to access any learning activity, either forms or timesheets, there are two ways for the student to do that. One is by going into the learning activities tab over here. If you go from here, uh, you would see all of the learning activities that the student has to complete, but each of this portlet basically corresponds to one rotation, right? So for every rotation, you would get a consolidated view of what all forms, for example, they have to complete. They can go to timesheets and view the that learning activity. But today, again, let's focus on forms evaluations. So this is one way for them to enter into learning activities. The other way for them to do that is by entering in through the field coursework. Okay, so if you enter from here, you can see all of the, again, it lists out all of the rotations that they have been placed at. Also shows the current status. If the placement is ongoing, it would say it's a current placement, or else if it is completed, it will indicate so here. Let's go inside one of the placements. So here, for example, we have just activated one form so far, uh, which is learning portfolio. Right now, the student sees, the status as initial get started. So they're at the first step, and the status is in get started. They have to start entering the information. So when they click on the form, they get to enter the objectives that that they want to set up for this particular experience. Uh, Once they have set up the objectives, they are also able to select the fieldwork instructor or task supervisor who they want whom they want the form, whom they want to review the form. So for example, they could either select from the list, and this list populates from when you add a new placement for the student. At that time, school may assign a fieldwork instructor or a task supervisor for the placement. So those names show up in the drop down here. But in case if the student is working with somebody else from what school had added, they could also add a new person as a fieldwork instructor or task supervisor right from here, and it will start populating in the list. It will also start showing up for the school that student has added a new fieldwork instructor or task supervisor. So once they fill up the objectives and select the field instructor or task supervisor, the workflow will generate emails for both of them. So these emails will contain a link for them to fill up the students, or to review the, basically in this case, they will review the objectives that student has filled up. I do have another form where we have certain values filled already. So let's look at that form. Okay, so for example, this is how the students would uh, fill their objectives, right? These are just some demonstrative examples. The task supervisor or fieldwork instructor, they have added some comments for the student during their review. We will also look at the view that task supervisors and field instructors get. But this is just so that you get a little bit clearer idea from some relatable data. So let's go back to our empty form and let's try filling in some information to see how the task supervisor and fieldwork instructor would see the form. I'm just going to put in some random values in here. I selected my fieldwork instructor. Uh, so in this setup, the student is only required to select the fieldwork instructor. But if you want to make it mandatory to also select the task supervisor, it can be set up in that way as well. So let's submit it. Let me wait for the email. Okay. So this is the email that fieldwork instructor has received. The text of the email again can be set up as per the school's preferences. This is just a demo setup. So in the email, they receive a link to the form. If they click on the link, it is going to show them what the student has filled in. Again, to repeat, I'm logged in currently, or I have accessed the link as a fieldwork instructor. The comments field is common between a task supervisor and fieldwork instructor. Uh, if you want both of them to have their own comment box, that can also be set up. But as per our understanding, a lot of times field instructor and task supervisors do the review together. So there is in this setup we have a common text box that they could use to add their comments. Uh, and Basically from here they could either save or submit their response. Okay, once this has been submitted, let's look at the school end. Let's go to that course. So you can see here currently this is in pending school review, right? If I go inside here, and I'm inside school login right now. So this is what I see. This is what the interaction has happened between student and the task supervisor, fieldwork instructor. If everything looks okay, I would mark this as reviewed. If I want any changes to be done, I would unsubmit this to student, and then the student will again need to follow the process and complete their end of things. While unsubmitting it to student, I could also add certain comments if I want them to make certain changes. Uh, and then they will follow the same workflow that we just discussed. Otherwise, school would just review, mark this form as reviewed. Once they mark this as reviewed, the um, the initial workflow or the workflow to collect students' objective is completed, and now we enter into the midterm workflow, right? So the student can then start filling their midterm ratings, self-evaluation. Right, for the student as well, it says it is midterm get started, so they can go in. And then the form starts showing all of the competencies against which the student needs to self-assess. So uh, it also shows them the rating scale and what it means, and based on that understanding they could rate themselves. Again, once they have completed this form, uh, the system has pre-selected the fieldwork instructor and task supervisor that they had selected during initial workflow. But if they want to change, they could change it at this point. Uh, so let's assume they select the fieldwork instructor and task supervisor here. Uh, let's just do that. Okay, and they submit. Okay, now this goes to the FITs for review, right? As discussed before, they get it in a link. They can fill up their part of the workflow. Once they have rated the student, we'll just see their view and then jump back to student login. So once they have, this is what they see. They see what student has rated themselves, and they can add their own rating as well and add any comments if they want to do that. And after completing everything, they would also click on submit, and the form would then go back to the student for their review once again, just so that they know uh, what ratings they have received. Again, the other course, we do have form in that status. So just look at this form. Okay, so the student sees how the fieldwork instructor have rated them and what comments they have added, right? Once all of this looks okay, they can click on review. The form then goes back to school. Again, school can view this from the review screens. We changed the course in between. So yeah, so they can then go to review this form. And then if everything looks okay, school also marks the form as reviewed. And then the workflow enters the final workflow. Final workflow is again same as midterm workflow, but during the final workflow, you would, the student, uh, during the final, they would basically see all the previous ratings as well, the midterm ratings, both FI as well as FITS as well as students. They see the previous ratings and then they keep on adding on to the previous ratings. Any questions so far? Okay, I assume no.
I'm not seeing any question, Shubda.
Okay, so that ends the learning contract workflow for us. So like I said earlier, this could be set up. There are many flavors to it based on our interactions with social work programs. And we have made sure that all of those flavors are supported in the system. Today what we saw is just something uh, that broadly encompasses everything that a school might need, but if there are any other variations needed, that could be supported without a code change. So just get in contact with your account managers and they will help you set this up in the system. uh, Now next we will look at the reports that are available. Sorry. So reports, to look at the reports, again, let me go to dashboard. To look at reports, you would again enter from learning activities. Once you are on this page, there are multiple ways in which you could access reports. You could either access reports from the left hand navigation. When you access reports from here, uh, it lets you select or run reports for any of the course offerings that you might want to look at the data for. uh, or else if you just want to look at reports that are or data related to a particular course offering, you could enter into the reports through this navigation. So against every course you would see the name of the, or you would see a link to the reports, right? The third way for you to do it is through the learning activity groups. So like I said, if you have some uh, related courses grouped together in a group, so for example for a class, and you just want to run a report for that class, you would just go inside learning activity group and then access reports from here, right? So depending on where you are entering into reports from, appropriate filters would be auto applied to those reports. We'll look at the report, what filters are available for you, but just keep in mind that there are these three entry points that help you, quickly get the relative relevant data that you would want to look at. So today, as of now, for all of the schools, we provide a raw data report. Apart from this raw data report, based on the needs of the school, as well as based on if certain type of program has certain needs of reporting, we do support creation of those custom reports for them. But by default, all of the schools would receive a raw data report. What this report does is it essentially gives you a dump of all of the responses that students have submitted for a particular form. So to extract data on this report, you would first select courses for which you want to look at the data. You would then select the form for which you would like to generate the report, rotations. If at all you want to just look at data for particular settings, you could do that. Or else if you want based on the workflow status, you could filter based on the workflow status as well. Once you have applied the filters, you click on generate report, and this will generate you report of every time a student has been placed and what has been responded, or what has been the response for every question. All of that you get to see in the report, right, along with students information and the placement details, right? So if you want, you could also export this report into Excel. If you click on this button, it would download your Excel dump of the report. This report, uh, this is not a real-time report, so the data gets updated every few hours. You do see when was the last data update done for this report from here, and you will get data uh, as on this date and time. Okay, any questions here?
I'm not seeing any question, Shubda, here.
Okay, so this is all that we had to cover today. Uh, like I said, you can get in touch with your account managers or with any of your needs related to any of the forms or evaluations. We'll get that set up. If there are any other questions as well, Kanti will probably uh, let you know how you can reach us and share your feedback and other uh, inputs. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shubda. All right, and that brings us to the end of this webinar. If you have few minutes, we would love to hear from you. So stick around. Once this webinar ends, there will be a short survey, and you can let us know how we are doing and what can be improved, and if there are any additional topics if you like us to cover in future.